we didn't have to miss so much sports. I wish there was another way to just disinfect somebody, almost like a gate of disinfectant. You walk in and you're just like sprayed down. That would be cool because I miss the fans. I miss the fans, and I miss my sports. I was just all sports. And I think what really kind of turned the key for everyone was once athletes started getting infected, that's when everyone was like, all right, okay, we got to take this kind of serious.
Yeah, like, you know what? Let me talk about that, because, like, when you look at the timeline of how this started, it started essentially with one basketball game, the Thunder facing the Utah Jazz, right?
No. It started in China, and I feel like a lot of people.
No, I'm talking about like the cancellation of the Big Four.
No. I think Mike's right. I think when the Thunder were playing the Utah Jazz, I believe there was a brief moment where a couple of the players, they had this large black cauldron, and I think they were kind of concocting some kind of bat soup there in that.
No, okay, of course.
No.
We know where.
I think it was Carmelo Anthony. He began eating the soup, and then
first off, he's on neither of those teams. But look, okay, let me. Of course. I'm saying, like, when we're talking about where I guess most of the leagues, because Italy was doing the no fans thing for a while, like the Serie A. They were doing the no fans thing.
I just want to say, from a soccer perspective, also, like, as soon as Italy called it off, I knew it was just a matter of time before like the rest of European soccer was going to call it off as well. So.
But I think the catalyst of it was the NBA, if we have to be honest, right? Because the Utah Jazz and the Thunder are playing.
Maybe from a North American perspective, but from like a worldwide perspective.
Well,
yeah, Europe, even before the NBA did anything, Europe was having closed-door events for soccer games.
No, of course, the closed door, but I'm talking cancellations. I'm talking pausing, right? I'm talking like questions about if, like, what, for example, what the UFC is doing is the right thing. It started, I'm going to say it started with the NBA and Utah Jazz versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Because when you found out Rudy Gobert had it, and by the way, in defense of Rudy Gobert, let he who up to that point was not joking about the coronavirus throw the first stone, okay?
That's completely fair,
right?
I wasn't joking about it. I wasn't joking about infecting people, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, like I'm hearing like very smart, talented people on big sports networks lay into Rudy Gobert, and it's because they have
lay into him.
No, but they have the advantage of hindsight. But I think they have the advantage of hindsight, because if you caught those people behind closed doors, they're probably making some jokes, laughing at some memes, laughing it up, having a good time.
And you know what? I think there's nothing wrong with necessarily having a laugh at something that's, dark humor. I don't personally disagree with it. I think it's a good way to make light of the situation. I think
was he irresponsible? Of course. Like, no one's here and saying he wasn't, but what I'm saying is that, like, you don't think it's going to happen to you.
And you know what I think it is? We're so desensitized because I think the media, not with this pandemic necessarily, being over-sensationalized, because I do think it's a legitimate threat, but with past outbreaks like SARS and swine flu and bird flu and whatnot that turned out to be, a lot of alarmism by the media, a lot of media-induced panic for things that kind of fizzled out and didn't turn out to be all that significant, right? Because of those, and because the media is willing to, make a crisis out of anything, we became desensitized. And now, by the time that it has hit us, and we're at the point where we actually have to address this as a legitimate concern, everyone's looking back with hindsight and saying,
he's, like, what's he doing? Like, he canceled our sports, and I'm like, look, of course he's being responsible. No, but that's what I know you wouldn't go that far, but that's what people are saying, right?
No. I think it's both possible to say that, what you're saying, Stefano, about the media has a tendency to hyperbolize these things and kind of feed into the mass hysteria. However, it was also irresponsible. This was something that had already locked down China. So I don't understand why something that had already had real-world impact in a real-life situation, just because it's geographically removed from your reality, doesn't make it any less real. You know what I mean?
But I
think
think
something I've noticed. Hold on.
Sorry, no worries.
I've noticed with the coverage of this, it's almost like people don't want to take it seriously until it's right at the front door.
Yeah.
And now that it's at everyone's front door, it's kind of just like, oh, what are we going to do? Just look at what happened in other places. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I agree with you, but I think that the point I'm trying to make is that, like, if Rudy Gobert was one of those people, I would, like, if I have to eyeball a number just by taking a shot in the dark, I would say he was one of 100 million people who was joking around about it, who was fake touching, who was fake coughing in the in the stores, who wanted to make a YouTube video and get some clout. Like, I'm not saying he was that far, but what I'm saying is that, like, for him to be in that, like, group of people who were joking around, I think we were only looking down on that group with hindsight and not, like,
No, not rolling. I'm not rolling because it's just not funny. Like, it's just not funny.
But, like, people were making jokes about World War III, like, literally a couple months back, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what
wasn't funny either.
I know,
Wait,
but this
hold
is
on.
what people do. I'm with you, but this is what people do,
David,
right?
are you one of those? David,
I'm agreeing with you, but it's easier to call people out, especially when they're wrong. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can tell those jokes. Yeah, you're well. I completely agree. Especially even if it's real, you're allowed to tell a joke to kind of ease some anxiety. However, when something bad happens and you were kind of making light of the situation, people are going to call you out because that's just the reality of it.
But, like, are you calling
though.
people out because it's a bad thing, or are you calling people out because now it's at your doorstep and now you have the advantage of hindsight?
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
I think that a little bit of
I'm gonna
dark
keep
humor
it
in
fun.
these situations is good. I think that, yeah, I mean, there's tons of jokes about far darker things that have affected a lot of people, and I think this kind of, like, not to attribute it particularly to this basketball player, but I think this kind of gallows humor is something that, helps a lot of people cope with these situations, right? I don't think it's necessarily negatively affecting anybody by making jokes. Did he go a little far? Like, sure, maybe. Especially because he was
touching mics.
Especially because he was infected, right? And
Yeah.
I guess that's the big differentiating factor here. But, like, I don't know. I'm not necessarily against making these kinds of jokes as long as nobody's personally affected. Like, you're not transmitting the virus. You know what I mean?
I just think
before Rudy Gobert was confirmed as infected, the NBA was still letting thousands of people into their stadiums, still creating this hotbed for the disease to spread. So they were being irresponsible in my eyes. It's just because Rudy Gobert was joking around and publicly on camera joking around that people can look back and say, okay, it's his. Like, they're not saying it directly, but by the way they're covering it, they're making it seem like it's his fault that sports are gone. But like, but if Rudy Gobert was joking around and wasn't infected, we would all be laughing with him. But like, I think the NBA is lucky that Rudy Gobert is taking the bullet for them because now they look like they can ride in on their white horse, like, oh, we're the ones setting the example. But, like, I think if Rudy Gobert didn't get infected, they would probably be irresponsible because, look, now I bet way more people would be infected, like way more people would be infected, and when would be the time that we shut everything down? When somebody dies, when somebody in the NBA dies. Luckily, these guys are in healthy condition and they're like, well, they maintain their bodies so they know, so they're less susceptible to being seriously affected by it. But, like, when was the NBA planning on shutting this stuff down? Like, when somebody died or when somebody ended up in a respiratory,
or when there was a lawsuit,
So, like, I think people are being hard on Rudy Gobert, and I think the NBA is lucky that Rudy Gobert is taking the bullet for them, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's the lion's share of the blame does have to lie with the NBA, right? But people just need a face to blame. They're looking for something memeable, something, you know what I mean? Some kind of comical story. But I think it's
why does the lion's share have to blame? Why does the NBA have to take the blame?
For continuing
well,
games.
I don't think it should be solely the NBA, but I think, like, all major sports leagues,
Sure.
Like, they didn't get ahead of it. Let's be honest. They didn't get ahead of it.
Yeah, and in their defense, it's a very, very human tendency to not address things until it's too late. Look at global warming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't we don't see consequences directly attributed to this. Like I don't see it, It's like the whole American US Senator bringing the snowball into Congress saying, "Oh, global warming, there's plenty of snow outside," right? Like until you immediately feel consequences and then it's too late, you're like, "Oh."
And we don't even know if Donovan Mitchell had it before Rudy Gobert.
No, we
Where-
do.
Well,
What do you mean we do? Where'd you get the like?
He
based-
has coronavirus.
no, but did
No,
he get it before or after Rudy Gobert got it?
Apparently, they share lockers. Or sorry, their lockers are right next to each
So
other.
exactly, but we don't know who had it first.
First, yeah.
we're just looking at Rudy Gobert
Because
as-
he was tested first, and that's why we were like, "Oh, it's Rudy," right? But
No,
like,
that's a good
what?
point. That's a good point.
Yeah, right. But what if it was Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert was joking around with Donovan Mitchell, and then all of a sudden he got right? My whole point is this.
You're right.
All I'm saying is this: is that we are using. I hate when people use hindsight to blame things that are very normal human reactions. Did Rudy go a little far? Yeah, but it's a human thing he did.
Yeah.
Nobody's
That anybody-
blaming anybody. People, well, let me not say nobody. Okay, I
Because
hear what you're saying.
I'm not saying you're not blaming people, because David, you're a rational and smart human being.
Well, barely. But what I'm saying is just, I think responsibility is kind of the key word. It was irresponsible, and now people are calling you down, and that's it.
family. You know,
And just next time there's a global pandemic, maybe don't make a joke about it. Like
the Rudy Gobert
it.
thing was even supposed to be a sidebar, wasn't it?
It was supposed to be a sidebar, but I'm glad I'm glad we talked
Okay.
about. I mean, look, there's no sports going on, so
Okay,
like we killed.
okay.
We
Wait,
killed.
hold on. No sports going on? Did you see what happened on Saturday?
Dress